In 2013, we began rolling out games as a learning tool in our classrooms. So in addition to Drew's incident management presentation today, we're excited to provide you with a sample of classroom game after Drew's presentation. You're invited to participate. We're going to provide you with instructions for downloading the virtual keypad and the ID for the game. Now there's a max of 50 people who can play the game at one time, so you want to get logged in as soon as possible. If you're on a mobile, you're going to use a smartphone, you can log into the mobile app here on the screen. And if you don't do it until a little bit later, it's over in the chat window also. We put this information in there for you. So there's a mobile login. If you're going to use your PC, there's your login for that. And the ping ID that you'll need to put in is 5381. And Drew, if you can go to the second screen for me. Perfect, thank you. So you're going to put in the ping ID number and then see this screen. It's going to say waiting for the quiz to begin. And that's where it's going to sit during Drew's presentation. And then after his presentation, when we start the game, it's going to come up and ask you to put your name in, and then you'll be presented with the first question. So we think you'll have fun with that today. So now let's get ready. So for those of you new to ITSM Academy, here's a quick overview. ITSM Academy is a full-service provider of ITSM education. We've trained tens of thousands of students on-site across the Americas and in our public training centers in Fort Lauderdale, Dallas, Minneapolis, Phoenix, Reston, Salt Lake City, and Tampa, as well as in our virtual classes. Now let's introduce our speaker, Drew LePatin. Drew has over 25 years of experience in IT management, having held positions in both technical support and help desk management. Prior to joining ITSM Academy, Drew served as the manager of ATAC, the AutoNation Technical Assistance Center, where he directed operations of 5 separate teams under the ATAC umbrella. In this role, he oversaw the creation and implementation of a centralized support model, which resulted in an annual savings of $1.5 million. Drew is an ITIL expert and a certified process design engineer. He is certified on ITIL lifecycle and capability disciplines and also holds ISO 20K Foundation and MA Foundation certifications. Drew has also served as president of the South Florida Chapter Help Desk Institute. Good morning, Drew.
Good morning.
How are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you, Karen?
I'm very well, thank you. And we're very excited to hear about incident management this morning.
Great, and I'm excited to be here. It's a great opportunity to be able to speak to people that I might not have had the opportunity to meet in class or on other virtual assignments. So I'm ready to get started. So let's start to talk about incident management and learn about some basic concepts, and then we're going to go over some practical advice for overcoming some common incident management challenges, which I'm sure that you have all had different challenges in your experiences. And then after the presentation, like Karen said, we're going to play a game, Who Wants to Be an Incident Manager, and have a little fun with that. And then after that, we're going to take some questions. So let's get started. So what have we learned, what we learn, and what have we learned about incident management from the past? And well, we all know that when we talk about incident management is about speed. It's about reducing that downtime. It's about reducing that unplanned work. How many of you have had issues where you've had unplanned work? How much time does that take away from doing the work that you're expecting to do, that you've planned to do? If anybody's ever read the book, The Phoenix Project, they know that unplanned work is one of the biggest impacts to how we get our job done. We're also going to talk about incident management, that it is performed at the service desk or the help desk. I like to use both terms. And how important is the service desk? I know that in a lot of institutions that it's an entry-level position, and therefore sometimes people don't look at it as a critical position in the organization. But I'm here to tell you that it is very, very critical, that the people that work on our service desks are very, very important, and that they should be treated with respect like anybody else. All of our technical staff, our application developers, they are just as critical as any of those other people. So What's an incident? Well, it's an unplanned interruption to an IT service or a reduction in the quality of that service. And so when I talk about quality, I like to refer to quality as the ability of a service to meet the requirements of the customer. So if we see a reduction in that quality, that means that that service is not meeting those requirements of the customer. So when we get those phone calls and somebody says, hey, the service is running so slow I can't use it, that's not an interruption to our day. That's an interruption to our service. And so that's an unplanned interruption, which is an incident. So how do we get these calls? Who calls in? Who tells us when we're having incidents? Well, usually it's the users, right? They call the service desk, hopefully our technical staff, although my experience has been that they like to fix them and then maybe let us know that something happened. Our event monitoring tools. If we've got a good, mature event monitoring tools, these can let us know that we're having incidents maybe before the customer even is aware that there's an incident going on, and we can prevent that impact to the customer. And also our third-party suppliers. Right? They can tell us when the services that they're delivering to us are having an issue and that we're getting an incident. So incident management even includes events that disrupt or could disrupt the service, right? It's that old adage, if a tree falls in the woods, does it still make a noise? Well, it makes a noise. There's just nobody there to hear it. But if we have an event or we have an incident and there's impact but nobody's on the system, it's still an incident. It still needs to be recorded. And we're going to talk about why it's so important to record all incidents that happen. So, incident management, what is the purpose? What's the objective? What's the goal? Again, it's all about speed. It's like triage. We want to restore that normal service as quickly as possible. I want to minimize the impact to my customers. I want to minimize the impact to the business. I want to ensure that I'm delivering those services at those agreed levels that we've agreed to in our service level agreements. And so how do we want to do that? Well, we want it to be standardized. We want our customers and our users to know where to call, who to call, how to call. So we want to make it standardized. We want to use those standard methods, those standard procedures. We want to make it easy for our customers to be able to call us and let us know that they're having issues with the services that we're delivering. And it's really, really important that we do make this easy for our customers. Remember, most of the time when our users are dealing with IT, it's when they're having a problem. I don't know about you, but it's very, very rare that I get a phone call from a customer that says, hey, Drew, you know what? You guys are doing a great job. It happens once in a while, but it's not very often. Usually they're calling us and telling us something's wrong, something's broken, something's not working. And so this is our chance for us to create an impression that IT knows what they're doing, that they're organized, and that they can deliver services and help customers when those issues do arise. And we all know, no matter how good we are, no matter how mature all of our processes are, things are still going to break. We live in very, very complex environments, and things just tend to break sometimes. That's just the way of the world. So we want to be able to enhance a business's perception of IT, and we can do that by delivering good incident management. And it's important that we also align our incident management activities with the priorities of those of the business. If you've attended any of our classes, you know that one of the things that we talk about is the alignment of the IT strategy and the business strategy. And so it's extremely important that the people working on our service desks, the people who are performing that daily incident management process, they understand what the priorities of the business are. What's important, right? Everybody has those vital business functions, right? What's important to the business? What's critical? People who are doing incident management, the service desk, they have to understand those priorities. And if we do that, we can create good customer satisfaction. Right? We can deliver quality services, and when the quality of the service gets interrupted, and it will, it always does, we can still have good customer satisfaction. We can leave the customer with the perception that we understand what we're doing, that we can fix things easily, and when they do have a problem, we can fix them quickly, and we can reduce their unavailability, creating value for the organization. So let's talk about what's an incident and what's not an incident. So an incident is when a service becomes unavailable. Maybe an application has a bug and it prevents it from working. Maybe some piece of equipment, a system goes down. We get an alert. A printer breaks. Some configuration is not working. Some service cannot be delivered to the customer. And so I always liked, when I was working on my service desk, and I did run a service desk for 9 years, and I owned the incident management process. I also owned the request fulfillment process. And I used to say to my people who worked for me, when somebody called up on the phone and they said, listen, I have this and it's not working, that's an incident. If they call up and ask, hey, I need this, that's a request fulfillment. And so those two things are a little bit different. We know from V2 historically that those used to be handled the same way. And in V3, we broke those apart. So today, when somebody calls up and is just asking for information, maybe reporting on normal operational events, maybe they're asking for something or they need something different, that would not be an incident. That would be just information or a service request. And those things will be handled by either event management or the request fulfillment process, whatever one that your organization thinks should be handling that. And again, we know that ITIL is not prescriptive, and that we should be able to deliver those types of services through the other processes. Now, a lot of those processes, like request fulfillment, are handled at the service desk by the same people. And so we're going to talk about how we do that a little bit later on. So what's the value that we're bringing to the business here? And there is a lot of value in incident management, right? It's highly visible to the business. Again, like I said, when customers call IT, it's usually because they're having a problem. And so this is, again, this is our opportunity to be able to make a good impression on those users and on those customers. So the value includes the ability to reduce that unplanned labor. There was a study done that said a mature ITIL organization can reduce its unplanned labor costs by 30%. And that's not only our unplanned labor costs, but also the time that it takes away from doing the planned things that we want to do. So I don't know about you, but for me, if I could get 30% of my day back every day to do the things that I'm planning on doing instead of the things that I wasn't planning on doing, that's a big chunk of time to be able to be proactive instead of reactive. The other thing, the value is detecting and resolving incidents quickly. I want to be able to reduce the downtime, right? When those services are unavailable, that's costing the business money. People are unproductive, they have to go find something else to do, or maybe do nothing at all. So if we can detect events, if we can detect those incidents and resolve those incidents quickly, we're going to be reducing that downtime, reducing that unavailability of services. And if we can do that, we're creating greater availability, which is creating value. And a lot of times, the service desk, incident management, request fulfillment, a lot of times they've been looked at as a cost center. And we don't want to be looked at as a cost center. We want to be looked at as a value creation center. And what we're going to do by being able to do incident management well is create value. Again, aligning those IT activities to the business priorities. That's why one of the questions I asked is, are your service desks, are your incident management analysts aware of the change schedule? Do they know what's happening in the organization? Do they know what's changing? We can very easily tie incident management to change management and very quickly be able to reduce the amount of downtime that gets created by changes that fail. And if you're like the organizations that I used to work for, we do have those times where changes get made, maybe a proper risk assessment didn't get done, or something just got missed, and those changes create impact. We want to be able to take a look at that and be able to prevent that from happening. And when it does happen, we want to be able to react as quickly as possible. If we're aware of the change schedule that's going on, we can tie those things much more quickly together. Another thing about incident management, again, is all incidents must be recorded. Right? Now, a lot of people think, well, why? What's so important about recording an incident? Once we get our incidents recorded, we can start looking at those incident management reports. We can start to do trending, we can do analysis, and we can start to see areas of fragility and weakness in our environment. We can take those as continual service improvement opportunities, tie those improvement opportunities back to the priorities of the business, make those alignments, and be able to get funded those improvement opportunities that we think are important, but also aligned to the business priorities. The other thing that we can do, right, we can start to see where those potential service improvements are happening. We can see those individual configuration items, those individual services, those areas of the environment where we're continuing to see repeated incidents. And if we can see repeated incidents, then we can tie it back to our problem management process, where they can take that and then do root cause analysis, come up with a solution, and then permanently eliminate those reoccurring incidents. Another important area that can bring value to the business from the incident management process is a lot of times people call the service desk when they just don't know what to do or they don't know how to use something. My experience has been, I've been in IT for quite a long time, and I was actually around. I grew up in New Jersey, so for those of you from New Jersey, right on, right? But I grew up in New Jersey, and a lot of corporate headquarters in New Jersey. And I was around in the early 80s when we were removing those IBM Selectric typewriters off of people's desks and putting IBM PCs on their desk. And people were like, what is this? What do I do with this? I don't know how to use it. And there was a lot of training going on, a lot of PC training, a lot of training on word processing and email and things like that. Today, that tends not to happen. Most organizations assume that you know how to use computers, that you know how to use email, and you know how to use different applications. But a lot of those applications and a lot of those services are unique and special to each organization. And there isn't a lot of training that happens. So through the use of incident management, where people don't know how to use things, we can start to define what those training requirements are, and we can bring those to the attention of the organization. Right? If people don't know how to use the tools that we're delivering to them, what kind of value are they creating? In a lot of cases, incident management is often the first service management process to be implemented and can help justify other processes. I know that when I worked at AutoNation, the first process that we brought on board was the service management process. We brought on incident management, and we brought on change management, and quite soon after that, we brought in problem management. We tied those three processes tightly together so that we could start to really create a beneficial impact to the organization where we're seeing issues within our environment. So, what we know now. So that's what we know from history, right? So what do we know today? Where is incident management today? Right. So you've got to love Dilbert, right? And apparently, Scott Adams, who is the creator of Dilbert, he seems to have had some experience with service desks. He seems to have had experience with a lot of IT organizations. But we poke fun at that. But in a sense, a lot of what he does in his comments is true. I know for me, we're all customers. We all have used service desks at one point in time in our lives, right? And so what has your experience been with a service desk? You as a customer, when you called the service desk looking for help, what kind of help did you get? Did you actually feel like the person you were talking to on the other end of that phone was you were interrupting their day, or their job was to make sure that you didn't call back again, like the comic here says? Or was it, did you get the support that you needed? Did you get the help? Did you feel that that person cared about you as a customer and was trying to ensure that you were happy and satisfied with the services that his or her organization was delivering? And that's really important, and it really comes through when we talk to those service desk representatives. And if you did have a bad experience, did you use that organization again? Did you use their services, or did you go find somebody else? I know for me, I've had good and bad experiences with service desks. And when I've had those bad experiences, it really caused me to second guess whether I really, really wanted to go back and use that company or that organization for their services again. So again, incident management is highly visible to the business. It's highly visible to the customers. It's where that first impression gets made, right? And you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So what kind of impression is your service desk making on your customers? I'll also tell you that whatever your customers think about your service desk, it's probably what they think about your IT organization as a whole. So hopefully they're dealing with a good service desk and not a helpless desk. I'm sure some of you have heard that terminology before, right? So some common challenges that we have at service desks, right? Big one, defining the difference between incident, problems, and requests. You know, and where do my customers go? If I have an incident, who do I call? If I have a problem, who do I call? If I just want to request something, who do I call? This is one of the critical things that we have, and if we can define those incidents, define those problems, define those requests, and make sure and understand and have our customers understand who they have to call, create those standard procedures. Let's make it easy for my customer to be able to get to where they need to. And most of the times we want them to call our service desks, report that incident, and then let the service desk define whether it's a problem, whether it's an incident, whether it's a request, and make sure that those calls get escalated to the proper authorities. Another big challenge that we have, service desk is not viewed as critical to the IT support organization. I know when I took over my service desk, people kind of called it the helpless desk. And they called it the helpless desk because my customers, after I was there for a while and talked to them, said, well, you don't help me. You don't give me support. You don't do what I need to do. And so it's critical that we understand what our customers need, and it's also critical that we make sure that those service desk representatives, those people carrying out that incident management process, are well trained and understand what the organization is trying to do. I used to tell the people that worked for me, we are not an IT organization. We are an automobile organization. We sell and service automobiles. That's what we do. And everything that we do here at the service desk ultimately supports AutoNation's ability to sell and service automobiles. And if that means making sure that somebody's PC is working, or that a printer is printing, or that they understand how to use an application, it's supporting their ability to sell and service automobiles. And so we have to ensure that we deliver adequately well-trained resources on the service desk. Now, the service desk, again, it is an entry-level position in most organizations, but it's a great training ground for people to use, for organizations to use, to grow those people into the organization. One of the things that I was most proud of while working at AutoNation, I worked there for 9 years as a service desk manager. In that time, I had about 40 people move through my organization and move into other parts of the IT organization. They became network engineers. They became database administrators. They became programmers. I even had a gentleman who started out on my service desk as a level 1, tier 1 service desk analyst who later became the change manager of our organization. So we created that pathway. We created that career path for them. And it became a very, very important part of what we did at the service desk. The other part here that ties into that is integrating with the other IT service management processes. And that kind of ties back to some of the questions that I had in the survey. One of the easiest things, I think, and one of the areas that I found was one of the big contributors to our success at AutoNation was the integration of the incident management process with the other parts of the organization and with the other processes. So we tied it very tightly to the change management process. We tied it very tightly to the problem management process. We tied it back to the technical management functions. So it was integrated in with all of the other parts of the IT organization. Change management, it doesn't take much to integrate incident management back to change management. And the benefits are huge. It's not costly, it's not time-consuming, and it's relatively easy. And the value that you get out of it is really, really big. My service desk, when the people worked at my service desk, they were aware. We had a weekly change meeting. They were aware of that weekly change schedule. So if there were changes that were going to be happening tonight, they knew about them. So that tomorrow morning, when those first people came in, and maybe phone calls started coming in, we could very, very quickly tie those incidents back to some of the changes that may have happened the night before. And if you can reduce the time it takes to figure out what's broken and then resolve it and get your customers back up and running, you're creating value for your customers. So that's really, really important for us there. Insufficient information, just creating good, solid data is a really, really critical thing for our service desk and our incident management processes to do. So confusing incidents, problems, and requests. So we know that incidents, what do? They focus on getting the customer back up and running as quickly as possible. And we can use some of our other IT service management processes to help us do that, right? Problem management will provide us with workarounds. Change management will provide us with information about what's changed the night before, right? And so we can use that information to help us do restoration much more quickly. Now, we're not focused on root cause analysis. We are just focused on getting the customer back up and running as quickly as possible. Problem management, on the other hand, is focused on prevention, right? Preventing those incidents from happening in the first place and preventing those incidents from happening again or multiple times. So problem management will focus on that root cause analysis, and they'll use incident management data, right, to help us figure out where those areas of weakness are happening and where we can focus our resources on. Request fulfillment sources and delivers components for those standard services. So we want to make it easy for customers to figure out, where do I go to get stuff? Where do I go to get those standard services that are listed in my service catalog? How do I get them? Who do I have to talk to? Does it cost anything? Do I have to have a license? All of those things, right, we can do through request fulfillment. And again, a lot of times, the people that are doing incident management are the same people who are doing request fulfillment. But, right, and it says here, we may share those resources, we may use the same tools, we may use the same knowledge sources, but what we want to do is we want to try and have different people manage those processes. As your processes mature, you may have people play more than one role. And of course, in most organizations, because resources are limited, I haven't met an organization yet that doesn't have limited resources, you may have people playing multiple roles. As a matter of fact, when I worked at AutoNation, I actually played the role of incident, and I owned the incident process, and I played the role of the request fulfillment process owner. So I did play multiple roles. So incident management is a critical process, right? It's very, very important that we establish a single point of contact for our users when those disruptions occur. And they will occur. They always do. No matter how good we are, things break, right? We live in very, very complex environments. We deal with very, very complex technology. And stuff breaks. It just happens. Things go wrong, right? You've got multiple people developing multiple services using different technologies, and sometimes they just don't work. Sometimes there's just ghosts in the machine. I swear, I think sometimes technology has its own mind. But those things are going to break, and we want to have that single point of contact for our customers so they know where to go to get that support. And incident management is going to act as a point of coordination for the other IT groups. So if something comes into the service desk, if it can't get fixed quickly at the service desk, or if it's beyond the capabilities and skill sets of the incident management analyst, right, we're going to escalate it up to the proper group. So we're that point of coordination. We're going to escalate, if it's technology, we may escalate it up to our technical management functions. If it's applications, we're going to escalate up to our application management group. There are other issues that we may escalate up to our IT operations group, just depending on how your organization is organized, right? And so if we can do these things and we can do them well, the outcome is going to be shorter downtimes, less downtime to the business, less downtime to the customer, right? So they're going to be able to create, they're going to have greater productivity by using those tools that we deliver. So if we have higher availability of our services to our customers, we're going to be creating greater value. And again, once again, incident management is going to be able to identify those areas where we can make potential improvements. And it's very, very critical, and I stress to you, that you have got to get everybody, from your incident management process to your technical management groups to your application management groups, to ensure that they document all incidents. That information becomes a very, very valuable source of knowledge for not only for the incident management process, but for the problem management process, availability, capacity, continuity, security. All of these processes will go back to the incident management process and use that data and that information that's created, and then garner that and use it as knowledge to think about how we're going to move forward in our environment. At the same time, we are creating customer satisfaction. So it's very important, again, in incident management, do I have people that not only are technically savvy, but can they also talk to people? Right? When I was on my service desk and I was interviewing people for my service desk, I was always interested in what people did outside of work. Did they have interest? Could they hold a conversation? Did they know how to talk to people? Right? Technology was important. Technical knowledge was important, but it wasn't everything. And so the skill set for people in the incident management process can be somewhat unique. Not only do they have to have that technical ability, but they also have to be able to talk to customers, understand what customers' needs are, and meet those customer needs. And this is how we can create good customer satisfaction. Very, very important. So we've got to have those well-trained resources, right? They've got to be aware of the services that we are providing to the business. Are your incident management people, are your service desk, help desk staff, are they aware of the services that are provided to the customers? Are they aware of how those customers utilize those services to create those business outcomes that we're trying to generate? So we've got to have them well trained in how to deliver and support IT services from that technical perspective. It's very important. But it's also very important that they develop the competency to deal with customers, right, and manage those customer relationships. They have to understand how the customer uses the IT services and how those services are going to generate value for the organization by the use of those services. Very, very critical. So how does incident management relate to all of the other processes in our IT service management world? And so one of the critical ones, these are all critical, by the way, but service level management, very important. I'm sure that most of you have SLAs and operational level agreements. I can see here, right, when we talked about operational level agreements, 33% of you, right, that's a third of you, have documented operational level agreements, how the service desk, how the different parts of the organization work together to support and deliver services. Critical. Another 33% of you have verbal agreements. It's not a big step to move from that verbal agreement to that documented agreement. And I can tell you from my experience, when you move from just that verbal to that documented, it becomes a really strong tool for you. And service level management is going to be at the forefront of doing that for us, right? So service level management helps us define measurable responses to incidents. We can go to those service level agreements and we can see how are we supposed to respond? How quickly do we have to respond? Who do we respond to, right? Very, very critical. And then service level management, right, gets feedback from the incident management process. It looks at that incident management data, right, measures the responses, and sees the areas where we need to improve. We can see the areas of weakness in our environment. And so service level management, maybe working with problem management, can initiate those service improvement programs on those areas where we're seeing multiple incidents, reoccurring incidents happening. So it's really critical that service level management and incident management work together. I was very fortunate in the fact that my boss at AutoNation played the role of service level management. And so we worked very closely together to ensure that our SLAs, our OLAs, our contracts, they all aligned well, and that everybody was aware of each SLA for different services and what the OLAs were and how we were going to work with each other to support the different services. And of course, different services have different levels of criticality. And so it's very, very important to understand which services are critical and which services are less critical. Right? Next, availability management. It's all about availability, right? If the service is unavailable to our customers, it's not creating value for the business. And if it becomes unavailable enough, your customers are going to go find another source to get that service from. And I can tell you, if you are an internal IT organization and you think that you are not in competition with anybody else, don't fool yourself. The business can always decide at some point to go outside the organization for their services and the support of those services. And so it's critical to understand availability management. And availability management is going to use the incident data to measure the availability of those services that we are delivering to our customers. It can see those areas where unavailability may be an issue, It can identify those areas and then start to work with service level management, problem management, create those areas and identify those improvement opportunities, maybe create a SIP, maybe go through continual service improvement process, and develop improvement plan, long-term improvement plans. Capacity is another critical issue, and the same thing with availability. Availability, capacity, security, continuity, right? All very, very critical. Again, capacity management, just like availability, is going to use that incident data to trigger monitoring of performance problems. So when we have capacity issues and they're getting reported to the service desk, we can use that incident data to figure out where those problems are coming from, where they're originating, work with problem management to find root cause, right, and develop a service improvement plan. Again, demand drives capacity. Right? And so when demand goes up, capacity has to meet that demand. And when we don't meet that demand, right, and we've all heard those horror stories when that happens. How many times have we heard about organizations that go to do something? You hear this a lot in retail when the Christmas rush comes and an organization comes up with an idea, maybe to meet demand. Somewhere along the line, people forgot to talk to the IT organization, and then the incidents happen. We've got to capture that information in our incidents so that we can prevent that from happening again. Information security. We're hearing in the news all the time about security issues, about security breaches, about organizations having security breaches. And so it's very, very critical that these breaches, that these security incidents get recorded and then get escalated to the proper authorities, right? So we use that, again, we're using that incident data, right, to figure out, are our security measures effective? And we use that incident data to find out where we've been ineffective. And then we can use that to figure out if we've been ineffective here, how do we improve it? Again, we go back to problem, we go back to service level, and we start to use that incident management data so that we can create greater security measures and be more successful in the future. You heard me talk about change, and again, I tie that back to the survey that we did, right? 34%, or I'm sorry, it says 37% of you have people from your incident management process attend your change management meetings. That's a pretty good number. I'd like to see it higher. I think it should be higher. But this is one of the easiest places, and it's not expensive. And so when we talk about, right, adding to the budget, this is something that's not going to add to the budget. It's just going to take a little bit of time away from answering the phones, but the benefits can be much greater. And so we should have a representative or representatives from the service desk attend our change meetings. Now, I, as the service desk manager, I was required to attend the change meeting. I was a permanent member of the CAB. But if I couldn't attend, or I was on vacation or out, somebody from my service desk, one of my managers, or even one of my else would attend the change meeting. And what we started to do is we had different members of my service desk, those first tier, second tier people, attend the change meeting, and then they had to come back and talk to the rest of the service desk and tell them, here's the changes that are going on, and again, have them understand what was happening in the environment. So change management is very, very critical, and it's one of those processes that's extremely important to integrate into the incident management process. And change management, again, they're going to help us. They're going to use incident data to check the success of changes, right? Incident management is used as that final check on change. If we have an incident, or if we have a change, and it happens, and we don't have an incident, great. We close the change, it's all all said and done. But when we have an incident, we want to tie those incident records back to those change records. And we did this pretty successfully at AutoNation. And we used that information and that knowledge to take a look at who was doing changes successfully and who were the teams that we were having issues with. And those teams that continually had incidents attached to their changes, well, there was actions taken for those teams to make sure that that number went down. You can start to really drive a lot of improvement and reduce a lot of impact and reduce a lot of unavailability by ensuring that your change management and your incident management process are tied together, and that you can tie your incident records and your change records together. And of course, change management is going to allow us to implement those workarounds. When problem management finds root cause and works on a workaround, remember we have to put that workaround through an RFC. Change management implements those workarounds and those solutions that the incident management process can utilize. Service asset and configuration management, or SACM as I like to call it, right? SACM is that process that provides all of the other IT service management processes with accurate, up-to-date information so that they can make good decisions about how to move forward. Right? So they're going to provide that data that incident management can use to help us handle and identify incidents and resolve them as quickly as possible. And in a lot of cases, incident management will help audit our configuration management systems. Even in our daily work, when we're creating incident records, the way we create those incident records, the way that we input that data into the configuration management system has been approved, or we've worked with our service asset and configuration management on how we do that so that we're creating accurate, up-to-date data through the use of every single incident record. Problem management and incident management are probably the two processes that are tied most closely together. Although their goals are somewhat different, right? I mean, the ultimate goal is customer satisfaction. But problem management is looking at reducing or handling those underlying problems that cause incidents. And where we can and where feasible, we remove those underlying problems that cause those reoccurring incidents, right? And so, but problem management is going to use that ongoing incident data to figure out where are those areas that we're having problems, what are the underlying problems, and then how do we resolve them. And if we can do that, we can prevent those reoccurring incidents from happening in the future. Access management has become, I'm sorry?
Hi, Drew. I'm sorry. It's Karen. We have just a couple more minutes for the presentation portion
before
we get to the Q&A. Okay?
I'm just finishing up. Okay. Last slide. So access management uses incident data to investigate access breaches. And today it's very, very critical that we make sure that we want our services to be available to those that it should be available to and unavailable to those that it shouldn't be available to. And we can use that incident data to help investigate those access breaches. Okay, lack of information, very, very important. You've heard me say this again. Record all incidents in all records, right? Each record is going to have a unique identifier that's going to be delivered and developed by the tool that you're using. Make sure that we tie those incident records back to problem records, back to change records, back to configuration items. Make sure that the incident gets filled out correctly by our support teams, that the data put into it is accurate and that it's complete. Ensure that we do proper categorization. This is really critical, so critical, in fact, that many organizations have an opening category and a closing category. And a lot of times when we open an incident, we may not have all of the information that we need. We usually base it on the symptoms given to us by the customer. And so what happens is we may not properly categorize it until after we have the resolution and we understand what caused the problem. or the incident, and so we can recategorize it with a closing category. Again, we're going to provide access to other information such as the known error database. We're going to have diagnostic scripts. We're going to have a workaround. They're going to help us create those proper incident records. So in conclusion, successful incident management relies on the recognition of its business benefit. Not IT benefit, but business benefit. How does incident management help the business? We have to ensure that we have sufficient resourcing, that we have enough time to train our people, that we have enough time to create and accurately record those incidents, and that the right information is being captured. Okay? We've got to use our knowledge and the application of our proven methods and techniques, right? That single point of contact, repeatable incident models, and we have to integrate with those other processes and those other IT service management functions. Very, very critical. All right, so who wants to be an incident manager? All right, any of you? All right, so we are going to now play Who Wants to Be an Incident Manager?
Okay,
so again,
before we start the game, let's give people just a few more minutes to either get this onto their smartphone or get this onto their PC. And, you know, I know that some of our listeners today, Drew, need to leave us at noon. So just as a reminder, our next webinar is scheduled for Thursday, May 23rd at 11 a.m. And Ibrahim Jackson, who's the Executive Director of IT Business Relationship Management at Estee Lauder Companies, is going to present IT Business Relationship Management for Success. And Ibrahim says that in this era of rapid-paced digital technology, information technology and services are a strategic advantage and, more importantly, a source of survival. Winning with the business requires convergence of business and IT strategy with professionals that are multidimensional thinkers. This presentation speaks to why, how, and what it takes for successful IT business relationship management. So we hope to see you all here back here next month for that presentation. It's going to be exciting. And Drew, thank you for this presentation. I mean, I just learned so much about incident management from you today. This has been really great.
Thank you.
And we have lots of questions coming in, and we have lots of accolades coming in saying, great presentation, thank you, great information.
Great.
So
thank you.
We'll be hearing more of that also.
All right, so let's play the game.
Yep, over to you, Drew.
Okay. Okay. All right, we got people logging in. There we go.
Perfect.
Hey, Drew, it's Lisa. Hello. Thank you. Great presentation. Well, we have everyone logging in. Let me ask you one very quick question.
Sure.
We know that, I know what a phenomenal job you did at AutoNation because, as you know, I had the opportunity to work with you there.
Thank you.
And I know that you go to a lot of organizations on a monthly basis. What is the single number one lowest hanging fruit that you see that organizations could quickly implement to improve service or service desk operations?
I think the biggest thing that I see is that the incident management process is not tied to the change management process. And again, you know, my experience has been that a lot of times if we don't have a really mature change process, a lot of times people are making changes and causing impact to the environment. And so if the service desk and the incident management process is completely aware of all of the changes that are happening every single night, because most organizations make changes every night or even during the day, if they're aware of those changes and they start to see symptoms of an incident, they can react much more quickly and they can escalate much more quickly to to the proper groups, to the proper personnel. And again, it's about speed. So if we can reduce the amount of time it takes to figure out what was broke and who to get it to, we can reduce the amount of time the impact is happening.
Excellent. Great advice. And we bought a little time, so we've got the folks logged in. So I send it back to you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right. So here we go.